People that work at OpenEye full time, so in terms of head curator, there's just one of us really. I am everything to do with programmes, so there's a director, a gallery manager who deals with all of the operational sort of front of house stuff, and there's me that sort of curates and delivers all of the programme. And then we have a couple of front of house people who interact with visitors when they come, sell things through the shop and that kind of thing, deal with visitor inquiries, and then we have like a freelance marketing person who works with us a couple of days a week. So we're a really tiny team, and it's probably the smallest team that I've worked for. I've worked for institutions that kind of go up to about sort of 50 full-time members of staff. So before I worked at OpenEye, I've been at OpenEye for the last 2 years. But we've only actually had this new building since last November. Has anyone been to the new OpenEye? I know some of you have. Did anyone go to one of the old OpenEyes? Great, brilliant. Okay, yes, fantastic. So we've actually had four different gallery spaces now, and we opened in 1977. We were one of the first photography galleries. Actually, there's still not many of us operating exclusively with photography in the UK. Basically, the kind of history of that is that in the 1970s, photographers like Martin Parr, Tom Wood, and Ian Beasley were making sort of forms of documentary that other people, other galleries, contemporary art institutions wouldn't show that work. And so the kind of little cluster of photography galleries like the Photographer's Gallery, OpenEye Gallery, Side in Newcastle, Stills in Edinburgh, Photo Gallery in Cardiff, Belfast Exposed, we kind of grew out of this need for dedicated photography spaces for people, for a kind of appreciative space of photography as a documentary and an art form. And we've kind of grown, always the kind of programme at OpenEye was always really kind of international, with people like Ouija showing alongside local practitioners, but it was always kind of very grassroots, and it's kind of grown through the years more recently to sort of have a particular international focus, which sort of different views about. But photography institutions have changed quite a lot as well over the years, and we started off with a darkroom, which I think was a kind of key element of our sort of community photography focus. And I think a lot of photographers felt that was a sort of meeting place and a place to come and learn and take part in a kind of social space. And we haven't had that darkroom facility for quite a while. We do run an artist support programme of masterclasses and workshops, which kind of runs about once a month. And we have photographers network meetings working with Red Eye Network. Are you all signed up to Red Eye? And if not, you should be, because they're brilliant, and they're a brilliant support for you, not just when you're a student, but also afterwards, because they have a membership, or you can just sign up for their newsletters and they'll just tell you what's going on, what exhibition opportunities, open calls for submissions, creative skills, sort of training things. They've got a kind of how to develop your business plan and your photography sort of business sort of classes coming up as well. You can use those while you're studying as well as afterwards. So we sort of, we do all of that kind of thing. Before OpenEye, I worked at a place called FACT, Foundation for Art and Creative Technology, in Liverpool for 5 years as curator. Have any of you been there? Do you know about it? You go to loads of things.
Liverpool, so.
Oh, great, fantastic. So FACT is the UK Centre for Film, Video and Media Arts. And so I come at photography from a kind of a broadly more lens-based media angle. I haven't come at it through a sort of documentary photography or proper photography route. And before FACT, I worked at a contemporary art gallery called Icon Gallery in Birmingham for 2 years as exhibitions coordinator. And in between those sort of things, I sort of struggled those sort of jobs and did some independent curating and kind of, I guess, sort of did things more in line with what some of the second year students are doing at the moment in terms of finding a venue, setting up a whole new space, putting together exhibitions, marketing them, managing them, and all that kind of thing. And that was a really useful process for getting to know all of the different things that are involved in putting together exhibitions, and also finding out exactly what it is that I was interested in. I did a fine art degree originally, but by the end of it I realised it was too difficult to be an artist or a photographer, and I'd much prefer to support other artists and photographers in organising other people's exhibitions and supporting their practice. I find it much more enjoyable, kind of working between different practices and supporting more of what's going on rather than kind of looking sort of internally at my own really particular ideas. But that's just because I was meant to be a curator, I think, really. And so the kind of things that I'm going to talk through are just sort of, I guess, kind of curating from my point of view now, and the things that I do within my role at OpenEye, sort of working for a photography gallery. But this will sort of, obviously changes depending on what size institution you're working for and what kind of thing. But three key questions that are always really valid for everything that I programme. I always ask myself, why this artist, or why this theme, why here, why this gallery, or why this city, and why now? And I think if you ask yourself those questions right from the beginning, and you get it right, you don't just put on an exhibition because you feel like you want to, or you feel like you need some exposure or whatever, but if you actually kind of work out what makes this exhibition special, what makes it relevant, then right from the beginning you've got some kind of key things to talk to people about and generate interest. And getting press involved in your exhibition is absolutely fundamental right from the beginning, and other partners, sponsors. So I think if you can just kind of have just a couple of key sort of bullet points, like why is this topical right now? Like, are you working with satellite imagery? Is there anything like any kind of big oil spill going on the other side of the world where people need to go through satellite images? Or what's this thing about the kind of documentary forms now? Why is it relevant now? Why is photography so interesting at this moment when everyone's using it? It's more, we take more images than ever before. It generally feels like a really kind of ripe moment to be working with photography. Because the public get it, the public use it all the time, and it's something that everyone can relate really directly to. There's nothing in between photography and the work in the kind of viewer, in a way that a lot of other contemporary art forms, there is something else, another layer to be mediated, either the media itself or the concept. But actually everyone can relate to photography now. Broadly, I'm not saying you should talk about every exhibition you do in terms of that makes it relevant, but actually there are sort of wider topical things, and it's really important to find what it is that makes your exhibition interesting and different, and that will give you a hook in to talking to other people about it and generating other interest. Oh, that shouldn't look like that. Basically, this was just in the process of putting together a brand new programme for OpenEye and for our relaunch. I kind of worked in this sort of way of just mapping out visually what the programme would look and feel like. So this should say launch exhibition, which was about kind of reconnecting a sort of core photography audience. So working with Mitch Epstein, who's a really well-established American photographer, really beautiful, strong photographs, but with a kind of really sort of key political edge to it as well. And then we got Martin Parr to guest curate an exhibition, which was very much about engaging the masses. And I know that Martin is like Marmite to most people, and normally people in photography just pretty much hate him. But in the sort of popular world and in press, he's everyone gets him, and everyone has something to say about him, and his work is pretty engaging. And so we invited him to guest curate a show about celebrity culture, and that was really about getting really wide exposure and opening up the programme to a much more kind of mass audience. And then we did a show with Richard Moss and Simon Norfolk, which was about, again, sort of bringing together two sort of strong photography projects, but a historical body of work by Simon Norfolk, which was about genocide, and OpenEye were the first people to show it in the early 90s, and then bringing a young Irish artist, Richard Moss, who's at a really sort of key stage of his development and making work with infrared photography, so kind of pushing the boundaries of the sort of media. And his work is all about conflict in the Congo, and really different approaches to their work, and so that was kind of key for kind of bringing, sort of tapping into a debate about the politics of photography and different sort of genres and how they butt up against each other. And then the last image with the strange guy with the pens up his nose and ears is Erwin Worm. So that was the starting point for that exhibition, was about a relationship between photography and contemporary art. So Erwin Worm is an artist who made a series of works called 1 Minute Sculptures through the 90s, where he and his models posed in different ways. They were asked to make sculptures out of their own sort of bodies within a minute and photograph them, and that was really sort of, it got really interestingly sort of taken up by popular culture. The Red Hot Chili Peppers made a music video out of it in response to that work, and people started making their own 1 minute sculptures through and uploading them to Flickr and YouTube and that kind of thing. So that was about sort of thinking about photography and branching out into contemporary art. And this is probably a bit boring as a flowchart, and I gave this lecture to some curating students recently, just to kind of show the sort of key processes that I would go through to put together a show. So first of all, research and development. Ideally, organising a show, you'd want an ideal sort of lead-in of 2 years before your exhibition opens. 18 months is sort of cutting it a bit fine, and 12 months then you're really going to be running to make it happen. Once you've done your research and you've confirmed your artist, I kind of find a useful thing to do is write a synopsis, just a one-page overview, which is usually in my sort of own language, about who the artist is, or what the exhibition is, and what are the kind of key themes or the key sort of interests, and then just sort of select a few bodies of work and kind of put it into context with what's going on now. So kind of those 3 questions about why this artist, why here, and why now, that synopsis would really pull out all of that. And then later on, that synopsis, the most effective way of working is that that synopsis then gets chopped up and used for a press release, or for the text that you write in your exhibition guide, your kind of exhibition leaflet, and on the vinyl text that goes on the wall. So it can get adapted, it can get slightly dumbed down, or it can get sort of talked up and expanded. It can also get used for your website. But if you just start with that one key piece of writing, and you've got all of your curatorial sort of rationalisation in that short page of text, then that just forms a really good basis to, in a kind of standard text to sort of share with other people and chop it up. Once you've got all that clear in your head, think about your audiences. If you haven't already, right at the beginning, because sometimes actually you're programming, a lot of the things we did at FACT in terms of programming media arts was we would often identify a kind of a theme, like, or whether it be something broadly about like body politics or environmental sustainability. We'd have these kind of big headings, and then we would find artists to program in response to that, which is sometimes a little bit tricky. But so if you haven't already started from that perspective, then you would think about who your target audiences are for that and how you're going to reach them, because your media campaign is really, really key to getting the audiences there that you want. So if it's other students that you want to get to see your work, or if it's particularly one type of press, or if it's a broader audience, going to the culture show and see if you can get a partnership going with them and those sorts of things. You need to think about your audiences really far in advance. And then identify your partners, look at the sort of galleries that you want to link up with. For the second year students, I guess you'll be thinking, okay, what kind of size space we need? We've got all of these this work, and we need to fit it into a particular space. What's available? Also production partners, do you need a printing partner, do you need a digital projector partner? Is there any other kind of production partners that you need to start talking to and chatting up? Before you've got it boxed off, before, you need to share, like, that actually we're putting together this exhibition, a few bullet points, it's about this, that and the other, this is what makes it different, this is what makes it great. And just get people interested in it, even before you've got a fully fledged list of works with sort of completed images and all the rest of it in mind. For things like Arts Council, which will be most people's first port of call, I think now they do applications up to £10,000 that they only need a 6-week turnaround, but you should still show anything over £10,000 is a 12-week turnaround. For a lot of big places it's 4 months. And then kind of fleshing out what work's available, what your actual list of works is. If you're working with, I guess for a lot of you this won't really be interesting, but if you're organising from other institutions, you need at least 6 months for notice for museum loans. So the TOTE, for example, won't even consider a loan request unless you've got in excess of 6 months before you. So if you made the application now, whereas that takes April. So that would be April that they would be doing all of the necessary paperwork in getting the work out of storage and condition checking it and getting it over to you, so it's quite a long lead in. And then this is where that sort of synopsis should make things a bit more easy. Then you're writing your exhibition text, you're adapting it for your website and your exhibition wall vinyl. So anywhere that the general public are going to read it, you're going to make it quite light and accessible. If it's an exhibition text, then a leaflet or something, or for a publication, then you can kind of go a bit, you can reference a lot more, you can make other sort of connections and be a little bit more conceptual with it. Public programme, I think it's really important to devise really good public programme that responds to the theme of the exhibition, and for me that public programming is just as important and probably takes as much time to develop as the exhibitions themselves. If you're doing a good, strong public programme and you're inviting, if you do a talk, a panel discussion, bringing together 4 different speakers, it takes time to kind of research who they are and research their availability, get the right thing together, book their travel and accommodation, work out what you're going to, work out the brief, what everyone's going to say, and anything else. Like at the moment I'm organising an online programme. That takes longer because you need to kind of get together the sort of online platform and rights and all that kind of stuff. Insurance, it's probably getting slightly boring for everyone now, but you really need to know what your insurance values are. So sending out a loan form, which has all of the details to fill in if you don't already know them of the actual works that you're loaning, even if it's to a photographer. So, and even when you're exhibiting in the future, you should expect to receive a loan form for works that you're submitting to an exhibition. And that's the agreement between you and the institution, which sets out what you're loaning, what insurance value it is, if anything goes tits up and you lose your work, you need to be insured for that. And the insurance value is the replacement production cost. So if you've made a silver gelatin print in a dark room by hand, and that's a one-off piece of work, so you need to factor in your time and darkroom hire and all that kind of stuff to reprint, to reproduce that work. So not just the print, actual print cost, but your time and everything should be included in that insurance value. The commercial value, what you would sell your work for, is something different. That will be valued differently. Once you've got all that in place and you've got your insurance policy booked, then you organise your installation schedule, book your technicians, work out your gallery plans, and again that depends on what kind of institution you work for. So at OpenEye I draw the gallery plans and I book a technician, and they build what I want in the space. And at fact, because a lot of things that we were doing were new media, if we were doing anything with a projection, then we'd have to work out the exact throw distance between the projector and the screen, and that might change the sort of size space that we do, and everything needs a plug to fit into and that kind of thing. So we had a team of exhibition managers and technicians who were just brilliant, and actually, so there was a massive overlap really between where my curatorial sort of vision ended and where the creative kind of exhibition production ideas kicked in, and so we would work very much in collaboration to make things happen. Shipping, there's loads of art shippers that you can use, which I guess you guys, your lecturers will be helping you find, and there's not much money around these days, so we use, Icon, we always used to use professional art shippers, like Oxford Exhibition Services, and who were the other one, Momart, sorts of places, but in fact it would be AV stage set design companies. Sound moves were a really cheap one if you're doing any sort of kit. They hang out with bands quite a lot and have a bit of a rock and roll lifestyle, so you kind of need to factor in a bit more sort of time to do that, but actually it can work out really cheap. And otherwise kind of man with a van type people, and it depends very much on the work that you're loaning and shipping and how well packed it is. You need to know, obviously, if you're working with a man with a van, things packed really beautifully and carefully, and it's all, and you're there and seeing it going in. And then you have your installation and you launch your show, blah blah blah. That's a bit boring, but okay. So this is how I research, and this is how I kind of stay on top of what's current. This is where I get ideas. So I'm going out and seeing things, seeing exhibitions. I was down in London last week, seeing some of the big shows at Hollywood Photographer's Gallery, the William Klein and Dodo Moriana at the Tysons, the Barbican, everything is moving. Like, just get down. Like, actually, we should all get down to London to see those shows at the moment. They're big photography shows, and they're not on for all that long. But also networking. So whenever I go anywhere to see those sorts of shows, that I'm trying to meet as many people as I can and go to private views and making meetings to hook up with people. I just met picture editor of The Guardian when I was down there, who's lovely and gave me quite a lot of her time to talk about how things go there and what they're interested in, and I've got plans to move to Birmingham, so I was kind of like testing out more from what she finds interesting, or not as it happens, in Birmingham. But it's really interesting because you can start to kind of build up a relationship with those people, and that actually does result in press, later down the line. And Sean O'Hagan just wrote a review on our biennial exhibition for the Observer, The Guardian, and he hadn't been up to see that exhibition, and it was because the last few times I've bumped into him at different previews and whatever, I said, oh, you really should come up to see that, it's going to be great fun, come to the party, blah, blah, blah. Sent him some images, sent him a little sort of personal email. I mean, he never replies to any of those emails, and he always just sort of says, oh yeah, hi, yeah, great, yeah. But he wrote a review, that's all that matters. Like, we've got a great review, so that project's going to get loads more exposure because of that, and you need to sort of work at those relationships. Sign up to e-newsletters, follow people on Twitter and Facebook who you think are interesting. Make sure you're at the key sort of discussion events. So if you're going to Brighton Photo Biennial, go to the talk and tweet things and be part of a conversation that goes on. Get visibility, because people like Brett Rogers, who are really active on Twitter from the Photographer's Gallery, you will see your name come up. Even if you don't sort of have a direct conversation or direct meeting or whatever, then people will start to become familiar. You'll have a level of familiarity with who you are and what you have to say about things. Web searches, you often find myself googling things like emerging photographer Bolton, and also looking at people like Red Eyes members' profiles, actually, seeing what people put up online about themselves. Just chatting to Ian before about the sort of nervousness about putting stuff online, yeah, in contrast to Ian, I'd always say sort of have a blog, get stuff up there, because as a curator, if you imagine if you're working 2 years in advance on a programme, and you know that in 2 years you have a show that has to show emerging photography work. If you were at that point, it will be old news if it was a fully done and dusted project. You want to see something now that is like, okay, that's interesting. Like, there's something there, and actually I can work. I can have regular meetings with that photographer, and support them through that process. We could do portfolio reviews. I can get them in conversation with John Duncan from Source Magazine for a different kind of perspective. You can work with people, and it doesn't matter. Actually, it's really great if your work isn't a fully resolved project when it goes up online, because it's much more interesting to see something that's in development where there's just something there. And that goes for the same thing for entering competitions. I've been judging quite a lot of photography competitions just lately. So Fresh Face and Wild Eyed at Photographers Gallery. I think you have to be it has to be the year after you graduate before you can enter. So it's quite a specific thing. But then Portrait Salon, which people like James Jenkins and Carol Evans are sort of running this new thing called Portrait Salon, and you can apply for that whether you're a student or not. And even if you don't get selected, then and actually the selection process is so bloody subjective. Whoever's on the panel of those things, it can go either way. I came up with Portrait Salon judging, and Carol said, "Oh no, don't which one was your sort of cover image? What's the lead press image that you think? Don't tell me it's the boy on the swimming pool." And we were like, "Yeah, the boy floating on the swimming pool. It's a brilliant image." And she was like, "No, that's terrible. I never would have picked that." So it totally changes depending on who's on the panel. But actually what's good is that you get your work out there and seen, and there's definitely people that have applied for Portrait Salon this year that also applied for Fresh Face and Wild Eyed. And I'm like, yeah, I've seen that work before. And actually it's a kind of good jog to your memory, and if you see it in a few different contexts, then it sort of builds up a familiarity. The portfolio reviews are also a really useful way of getting feedback about your work, but also getting it on other people's radars. And that's a real pleasure to be able to sit down with someone that really has just opened themselves up to criticism and said, right, this is my work right now. Thinking of doing this, that, and the other, but I don't know, what do you think? God, it's just such a privilege to be able to sit down with someone and say, this is really interesting, this is really working really well, have you thought about this, and you looked at this photographer and this artist. And, you can take whatever you want from that. You don't have to take anything away from it, but actually it's really great to go and do those things and get your work seen. And I also set Google alerts on certain things as well, so if anything's written about someone or someone posts a blog or whatever, then I get to kind of see that sort of come up. One thing about being a curator is that you just feel like you're a hardcore negotiator the vast majority of time. The amount of basically you at least have two hats on. One is this sort of representing the artist, and you've chosen to work with them because you really believe in their work, and you see this sort of moment in their career, and you can see what this show needs to do for them, and you absolutely want to make that happen. But you also have your institutional hat on, and often, Open Eye or Fact or wherever would have its own sort of programme focus and interests, and it has its own budgets to work with, and it has its other sort of vision. I have a director who has a really different vision to me, and you need to sort of negotiate all of those things. I suppose the reason I'm telling you that is because often when you work with a curator, it must actually be a really bloody frustrating process. That there are times where you feel like, why can't you just do this, or why can't you just, why can't I have more money for that? Or for an example, when I was working with Richard Moss, who's a young Irish artist, whose work looks like this. Really beautiful, can't really see it actually there, but really beautiful infrared, sort of very pink, highly aestheticized images of the landscape, and a really sort of crucial point in his career. And at the same time, he was showing it against Simon Norfolk's work, which is really strong, black and white, again, really highly aestheticized, beautiful images of genocide, which was made in the 1990s, a really sort of key moment for his practice as well, turning away from photojournalism. And I know that my photography audience at OpenEye, not all, but actually there's quite a there's a certain conservatism within photography, I think, especially with regard to sort of British documentary, and there's a lot of appreciation of the different sort of photography forms and photography's relationship to photojournalism, and how that interacts well or not with contemporary art. And so I know the way that I kind of need to talk about Richard's work, and actually I know that I need to sort of be loyal to the photography audience and sort of put, because it is so highly aestheticised, and actually some people really hate this work.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course you can.
Is all his work shot in the Congo?
No, well, the Infra project is all shot in the Congo.
But also with infrared?
All with infrared.
Did
So
that generate any discussion?
loads.
Using a major human conflict as a tableau for artistic aspiration?
Yeah, absolutely. Shitloads of debate. And in fact, the biggest debate came from Simon Norfolk, who wanted to punch him, pretty much. And they hate each other. I mean, Simon, they're like totally different, which is also why we put them together as well, because we wanted to raise that debate. So yeah, I mean, it makes this conflict. So basically, the infrared film reacts to UV light in the foliage, and it registers this chlorophyll, and the landscape is bright pink. But what you get as a result of that are these really extraordinarily beautiful images of actually really violent landscapes, and landscapes where these absolute atrocities have taken place, which is also really complex. It's a really complex conflict, and it's been going on for, at least a couple of 100 years, and the conflicts change, there's different rebel groups. And Richard's motivation, sorry, just because I was really cold last night. Richard's whole motivation for making those images with infrared was that it's actually really impossible to understand the Congo, especially when you're standing in a white-cube gallery space in a Western sort of context. That actually, how can you ever really understand the complexity of what's there? And so making them in this kind of cloaked in this bright pink sort of colour, it's a way of kind of showing that there is there's a lot that is cloaked, and there is a lot that can't be seen, and you can only actually see it or experience it at surface level. Now that's a really different approach to Simon Norfolk, and Richard absolutely has no regard for the sort of history and the politics, and he does not want to understand the huge, significant sort of conflict that's gone on. He doesn't attempt to understand it. Actually, he has built up a really good knowledge of it, but actually he would rather pay his way by paying rebel tribes to take him into the heart of the Congo and photograph what's going on in day-to-day life, and to kind of get to meet different rebel tribes and to hear different perspectives and photograph people and life there. That's his goal. Simon Norfolk is the most eloquent, well-researched, knowledgeable man I've ever met that could talk brilliantly about the history of war in any of the genocides, actually, but the relationship between Rwanda and Congo, and incredibly knowledgeable, amazing guy, coming at it from a sort of photojournalist angle. And really frustrated with Richard that he doesn't want to understand the sort of politics and history. So,
is there a large age difference between them?
Richard's now about 32, Simon's probably in his sort of mid to late 40s. But actually they were probably about the same age when they made those bodies of work. They're really different disciplines, I think. They're really different approaches. And I think each are actually really valid in their own right. But yeah, I mean, it did sort of raise quite a lot of discussion, especially with Richard and Simon themselves. But I think what sort of going back, the thing that's, so I'm aware of that, like actually, and how sort of prickly that debate is, particularly with photography, and actually in a contemporary art, contextualising that work for a contemporary art audience, you know, it wouldn't feel as explosive. So we'll talk about it in a really different way. So when I was trying to sort of expand on Richard's work in the context of other sort of photography forms and histories, you know, he wasn't that happy about it. He wanted me to write something fresh from a kind of an art history, you know, putting his work into a kind of art history context. I think what's difficult for a curator sometimes is that, you know, you want to support the artist and give them everything that they want, but actually, you know, your audience as well, and you're also working with the institution, and you need to kind of respond. You need to sort of straddle both kind of things, really. Managing our mission and resources, again, is just like, at the moment, there's virtually no public funding out there, but what you can do is just get things for free, and it's amazing what you can do if you ask for things for free or negotiate partnerships and stuff these days. You can get an awful lot of stuff in kind. Negotiating with your team is also interesting. You know, it's easy when you work in a small team and you just do everything. It's a bit more difficult when you work in a larger institution like FACT, where you've got a team of technicians, not even technicians, but like gallery managers and exhibition managers and marketing and communications and press and front of house and whatever. Bringing funders on board, just meeting face to face with funders if you can. If you're ever applying to the Arts Council, don't just bung in a cold application. Go and meet your digital and creative economy officer at the Arts Council if it's photography, or visual arts if it's more kind of visual arts route. Meet them face to face, have a chat before you put it in, because they will remember you and it does count. Striking up a conversation with critics as well is just really important. Doing face-to-face stuff where you can, and if you can't, actually there's nothing wrong in going to a private view and saying to one of the gallery assistants, can you show me who the curator is or the marketing person, and going up and introducing yourself. And it might feel a bit weird or uncomfortable, but you have every right. I mean, we're paid public money to do a public service, and we are there to see new work, and it's our job to meet you and have a relationship with you and look at your work or point you in the right direction of someone that can help. So don't just think that we're some kind of weird alien life form. And someone phoned me up the other day actually, because she sent me a proposal which I've not looked at, and then she'd emailed me again and I've not replied. So she phoned me up and said, I sent you this, have you received it? Sent you 2 emails. I'm just really excited about this project that I've just done. Just had this exhibition in this shop, and it looks really great, and it was the busiest day, it took the best takings ever. And it was only because she kind of, and it's awful, I'm really snowed under because we're such a small team, but it did make me stop and pull up her work and look at it and think, actually, that is really good. And email Patrick and say, actually, have you looked at this Work Festival? Because it does look really good, and it's really good emerging work that we could show. So do that. And internal negotiations. These are some exhibitions that we've done at Open Eye, so I sort of, a bit hard to see there, but Mitch Epstein was our launch show. Brilliant, thank you. Big sexy prints of American industrial landscapes of sort of production things, and the context of that show changed from we should have launched our new gallery at a completely different time actually. So the strategy for that exhibition was about something that was politically engaged, but then we had to move the show. We stuck with Mitch, but I wouldn't necessarily have chosen him actually for a launch exhibition had it not been for that starting point. That was Martin's show, and this was an exhibition about about celebrity culture, and this was a young Australian guy, an amateur photographer who'd spent his whole life chasing celebrities for their photographs. So it's kind of tapping into the vernacular. Richard Moss, which we talked about, alongside Simon Norfolk. What we're doing is balancing archive work upstairs against kind of contemporary projects downstairs. But the show that you've just seen is biennial, sort of It's actually contradicts that. So quite a lot of you have been to see the Liverpool Biennial at the moment, and it's kind of a really interesting process that so very soon we'll start meeting again with the curators from the Biennial, from the Tate, from the Blue Coat, from FACT, from the Walker Art Gallery, and we start sharing ideas and building a theme, putting artists on the table, sometimes fighting for them, and then seeing how it all maps out. I think it'll be quite different actually from next biennial because there's a new artistic director, Sally Talent, and I think she's quite interested in bringing in external curators to curate across all venues, which hopefully will kind of make things a lot tighter and more cohesive actually across the whole biennial. But it's interesting. It's an interesting process to go through because you get to kind of test out who's interested in what and who's looking at what, and sort of get to know the politics of all the other institutions and how that informs the decision making.